When I was growing up, I really only had one friend, a shy, skinny kid with thick glasses named Jeffrey. Jeffrey and I both had a lot in common. I think the most obvious thing was that we were both extreme introverts. Neither of us were very outgoing. We were both extremely shy and not very talkative. But I think it's these character traits that made us get along so well. I really didn't know a lot about him and his home life. I did know that his father really wasn't in the picture. In fact, by the time Jeffrey was 8 years old, you could count on one hand the amount of times that he actually saw or spoke to his father. As for his mother, well, I believe she may have been a drug addict. I don't want to speculate too much about that, but on the one or two occasions that I did see her, she looked like she was extremely strung out on something. But again, I don't want to speculate too much on that. That's not really what this story is about. Jeffrey and I lived in the same apartment complex, so I got to see him almost every single day. In addition to us both being extremely shy, we shared another common trait. We were both afraid of water. I don't mean like we couldn't take baths or showers or anything like that, or we couldn't drink water. I mean we were just terrified to be immersed in it. The apartment complex that we lived in did have a swimming pool, and it was extremely popular for the tenants to go in there in the summertime. Late at night, when the pool was supposed to be closed to everyone, we would sneak inside the gate and just sit there on the edge of the pool. The only thing that we could actually bring ourselves to do was to dip our feet into the water. It was kind of like swimming, and it was relaxing. This was something that Jeffrey and I would do often, usually a few times a week. And by the time fall rolled around, and the leaves would start falling from the trees and land inside the pool, we even started to make a game out of it. We'd watch the leaves swirl around by the pool filter, and as they became more saturated with the pool water, we'd watch them slowly sink to the bottom of the pool. Now, I'm sure lots of kids have done this where you lay on a grassy hill and you look up at the sky, and you try to look at the shapes of the clouds and imagine what they look like. For example, you might see things like sailboats or pirate ships. Or maybe you see bunnies or bears. And since Jeffrey and I were looking at leaves inside of a pool, we kind of looked at the ones that sank at the bottom in the little piles, and we would try to imagine what the shapes looked like. It was during these points that he would sometimes open up to me and tell me a little bit more about his home life. He would tell me things about his father or his mother. Sometimes they were happy things. Sometimes he would think about his family in a very positive way. And other times, he would tell me some very dark things. Some very disturbing things that I really don't want to repeat. But no matter what he said to me in those times, by the time we said goodbye for the night and we snuck back into our apartments, he always seemed happy. That's something I'll always remember about Jeffrey. No matter how bad things were going for him, he always found something positive about the day. One night while Jeffrey and I were sitting at the poolside with our feet in the water, Jeffrey dared me to jump in. And I, of course, being a little bit afraid, said, "No, I dare you to jump in." We both kind of laughed about this, because, again, we were both afraid to go inside the water. It was at this point that Jeffrey looked at me and said, "You know, one day, I'm going to overcome my fear, and I'm going to swim inside this pool." I thought he was joking at first. I mean, he couldn't be serious. I then told him that that would be a very brave thing to do, and that I certainly didn't have the guts to do anything like that. I think in a way this made Jeffrey kind of proud, because he was willing to try something that I was terrified to do. And to be honest, in that moment, Jeffrey became my hero. Even though he was just a shy, skinny kid, there was something about him that was extremely brave. And after hearing some of the horror stories about his home life, I guess in a way he would have to be very brave. It was about 2 nights later that we were almost caught by maintenance sneaking into the pool. We hadn't even gotten halfway inside the gate when someone shone a flashlight on us and started shouting at us to get out of the pool. Jeffrey and I both ran and hid inside some bushes, and when the coast was finally clear and we were sure that the maintenance man had gone away, we headed back towards our apartments, Both the cops and the property manager ended up on the site about an hour later. By some strange twist of fate, the following morning that maintenance man was actually fired. It turns out that the night he was chasing us, he had actually been drinking. When Jeffrey and I heard about this the following day, I guess in a way we were relieved, because it meant that we could sneak back into the pool again and we probably wouldn't get caught. For whatever reason, it seemed like the apartment complex was having a hard time finding a replacement for the maintenance guy. We could tell because the grounds were starting to fall into disrepair. The grass was becoming overgrown and it looked like no one had been cleaning the pool out. And as such, every night we went back to that pool, we would always remark to each other about how the leaves just kept building up inside and how there were more and more of them at the bottom of the pool. This didn't stop us from playing our game of guessing what the shapes looked like, and it certainly didn't deter Jeffrey from telling me again that someday he wanted to go swimming inside that pool. I told him that with how dirty the water was that it probably wasn't a good idea, and that maybe we should just stick to sticking our feet in the water and nothing else. He kind of gave me a little bit of a sigh when I said this, but I think he understood. He agreed that it wasn't really a good idea and that he just wanted to talk tough, maybe be a little bit brave in front of me. The next night, I snuck back inside the pool area, and I sat down and put my feet in the water. After about 15 minutes, I still didn't see Jeffrey. My thinking was that maybe he had gotten grounded. Perhaps his mom had caught him. Something like that. Another 20 minutes go by and still no Jeffrey. I decided to play the leaf game by myself and stare at the leaves in the bottom of the pool. I tried to decide what the shapes of them looked like. Sometimes it would look like a boat. Sometimes it would look like a face. Things like that. It was about another 20 minutes of this and I decided to call it a night. As I was walking outside of the pool, I heard the gate slam shut behind me. This did make me jump a little bit. When I looked behind me, I couldn't see anybody. I opened the gate back up and I looked at the pool, and that was when I noticed that the edge of the pool was wet. I mean, I could see my footprints from where I'd stuck my feet in the water. That much I expected. But I could also see a second set of footprints, heading in the opposite direction that I headed. I figured maybe Jeffrey had snuck in and was just trying to play a joke on me, so I started calling out for him. I got no response. The next night I went back to the pool, and it was the same thing. I waited and waited for Jeffrey, but he never showed. I found myself staring at the leaves in the bottom of the pool, and playing that same game that Jeffrey and I would always play. This time I waited for over an hour. I never saw Jeffrey. I called it a night again and headed outside of the gate. I hadn't gotten more than 15 steps from it when I heard it slam shut behind me again. And when I returned to the pool, it was the same story. There were two sets of footprints. Mine and somebody else's. Both heading in opposite directions. Again, I thought this was Jeffrey, so I called out to him. And like the night before, I got no response. The following night, I headed back to the pool again, and sat down and stuck my feet in the water. I had only been there for about 5 minutes, when I could hear a voice behind me. It was Jeffrey's voice, and I heard him say something to me. 2 words. 2 syllables. Jump in. I then called out, "No way, that's crazy. I'm not going to jump in the pool. You know I'm afraid of going in. Why would I do that? Where are you anyway? I can't even see you." Jeffrey's voice repeated the same words. Jump in. And that's exactly what I did. The pool was extremely disgusting. The water was very murky and full of rotting leaves. Almost immediately after I jumped in, I swallowed some of the pool water and started gagging. I couldn't believe how deep the pool was. I had completely underestimated the depth, and I frantically started kicking my legs and swinging my arms, just trying to keep my head above water. I felt something sharp in the bottom of the pool scratch my leg and I screamed. As quickly as I could, I reached for the ladder and pulled myself out of the pool. All that screaming and splashing must have alerted somebody, because as I laid there on the side of the pool gagging and throwing up the pool water, I can hear people coming inside the pool area. A few moments later, the police were on site, along with the apartment manager. They had asked me what had happened, and I was afraid to say anything. I didn't want to get Jeffrey into trouble, and I knew I was already in a lot of trouble myself. So I just lied. I told them that I had walked into the pool area and tripped, and I had fallen in. The apartment manager looked furious, but more importantly, he looked scared. I think he was afraid of lawsuits or something like that, since the gate had never been locked even once since we had started doing this. So that same night, he closed off the pool, and he started draining it. Around 5 a.m. that morning, there was a knock on my apartment door. When my parents answered, they discovered that it was the police. I guess in my 8-year-old mind, I was worried that I was about to be arrested and thrown in jail, because after all, what I did was technically wrong, and I wasn't really sure if I could get in trouble for lying, because I didn't really know how the law worked. My mom and dad came over to me, and they both put their arms around me, and they started crying. I was extremely confused and I started crying too. I said, "Mom, Dad, please don't let me go to jail. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sneak into the pool area, but Jeffrey and I had been doing it for a long time. We really didn't think we were going to get caught. We won't do it again, I promise." It was at that point that the police officer came over to me. He put his hand on my shoulder, and he looked me square in the eye. And that was when he gave me the worst news of my life. My friend Jeffrey was dead. When they drained the pool and they started clearing the leaves from the bottom, they found his body, hidden among the leaves. I asked how that could have happened. How could that be possible? Jeffrey had just been talking to me the night before when I fell in the pool. Did he fall in after me? This is where it gets even stranger. Jeffrey's body had been at the bottom of that pool for several days before he was discovered. They speculated that at some point in the night, he had gone inside the pool. The filter system was turned on, and he had gotten too close to the vent at the bottom, and it had pulled him under. All that thrashing around he would have done caused him to get covered by the leaves, which hid his body. And since the previous maintenance worker had been fired, there was nobody there to clean the pool and discover his body earlier. It turns out that I had cut my leg on his glasses, which was sitting just at the bottom of the pool. I can't make any sense of those footprints those nights before, because at that time, Jeffrey's body would have been at the bottom of the pool. I can't make any sense of that voice I heard either, because that was definitely Jeffrey's voice. Honestly, I don't know what to make of any of this. I don't want to speculate as far as things like ghosts or any of that stuff. I just know that this did happen, and that I miss my friend.